The Farolitos of Christmas, a New Mexico Christmas story by Rodolfo A. Anaya. It was going to be a sad Christmas, Luz thought as she hurried down the road to the house of her friend Rena. Only 3 days to Christmas, and her father still had not returned home, and worst of all, her grandfather was ill. "Caw-caw!" the black crow called from the bare branches of the cottonwood tree. To Luz, his cry sounded like, "Cold, cold!" She paused to look at the large black bird. "Yes, Mr. Crow," she said aloud. "It is a cold morning." Luz tightly grasped the gifts she was taking to school. Then she snuggled her chin down into her scarf and walked on. Except for a few children hurrying to school, the streets of the village were empty. The men had already gone to work, and the women were cooking and cleaning in the warm houses. Everyone was preparing for Christmas. There was frost in the ground, and a cold wind blew through the bare trees. Luz looked at the Sangre de Cristo mountains. Gray clouds covered the tall peaks. Perhaps it will snow for Christmas, Luz thought. As she turned the corner at the grocery store, she stopped to look at the cardboard figure of Santa Claus in the window. "Drink Coca-Cola," the sign said. "Que bonito," she said aloud. "He looks like an old grandfather. Santa Claus." Her grandfather called Santa. "Is Santa Claus real?"
"Oh yes, he's real."
Her abuelo winked. "He comes with his bag full of presents for the children, but the pastores come to adore and sing to the Santo Niño." "Tell me about the pastores, abuelo," Luz said. She knew the pastores were people from the village who dressed as shepherds on Christmas Eve. They performed the story of the original shepherds who had gone to see the birth of Christ. "The pastores are an old tradition," her abuelo said. "They have been part of Christmas for hundreds of years, and the pastores of San Juan are the best in all New Mexico. On Christmas Eve, when they come down the road on their way to church, they stop to present their play in front of the house with the biggest luminarias." "And that's our house, abuelo," Luz said eagerly. "Yes, you and I make the luminarias, the little stacks of wood in 2 lines, right to our door. On Christmas Eve, we light the wood, and everyone comes to see the bonfires. Then the pastores stop at our house and sing. After they sing and tell the story of the shepherds going to see the birth of Jesus, we will invite them in to eat." Her abuelo had lighted the luminarias every Christmas Eve since Luz could remember. Now he was sick with a terrible cold, and the doctor wouldn't let him work outside. There would be no luminarias this Christmas. The pastores would not stop to sing in front of Luz's house. Luz worried. What was Christmas without the pastores coming to their home to sing? Luz heard the school bell ring as she hurried to Rena's house. They didn't want to be late for school, or Mrs. Smith, their 4th grade teacher, would make them stand in the corner. Luz knocked on the door, and Rena ran out, her arms full of presents to take to school. She wore a bright red woven jacket and warm mittens. Her mother was one of the best weavers in the pueblo. "Good morning, Luz," Rena called. "Hi, Rena. Let me help." She took one of Rena's packages. "What's the yarn for?" she asked. Rena held stands of brightly colored yarn. "For the Christmas tree at school," Rena said. "Oh, it will be beautiful," Luz smiled. "Good morning, Luz," Rena's mother called from the door. "How's your mom?" "Buenos dias," Luz answered. "She's fine, thank you." "And your grandfather?" "He still has to stay in bed. His cough is worse." "Tell him to take tea of Osha. I'll send some with you this afternoon. That will help." "Thank you, Mrs. Abeta." Rena's mother said goodbye, and the 2 girls hurried towards the school. "We are going to decorate the Christmas tree at school," Reina said. Isn't that exciting? Yes, Luz nodded. We don't have a Christmas tree at home. We usually celebrate Christmas by going to the other pueblos to dance, Reina said. But my father said maybe this year we could have a tree. Could you come over and help me decorate it? Yes, Luz nodded. My father said he will cut a star of tin for the top of the tree. It will be beautiful, Luz said. Is your father coming home for Christmas? Reina asked. He is working far away, Luz said, and we don't know if he will be coming home in time for Christmas. I'm sorry, Luz. Anyway, I don't need a Christmas tree. My abuelo and I make the luminarias for the pastores. I like the pastores best of all, Reina said. I like Bartolo. He's the clown. I like Kila. She sings beautifully. Mother said when I grew up, maybe I can be Hila. It's my favorite story, said Reina. Mine too, Luz said quietly. Luz, you sound so sad. Is it because your abuelo is sick? Luz stopped and looked at her friend. Tears filled her eyes. Abuelo has been sick for a long time, Luz said. The doctor said it is a bad cold. Now he can't do any hard work. He can't cut the wood to make luminarias. He can't even cut wood for the stove. He's so sad. I'm sorry, Luz. I wish there was something we could do. There's nothing anyone can do, Luz said. She wiped the tears from her eyes. Come on, we don't want to be late for school. She turned and ran into the school so Reina wouldn't see her cry. At school, that day, they decorated the Christmas tree and painted pictures of Santa Claus with his big bag of presents. Mrs. Smith taught them, Silent Night, Holy Night. While they were singing, Luz thought of her abuelo and wished he would get well so they could light the luminarias for the shepherds. That afternoon, Luz and Reina hurried home from school. Reina's mother gave Luz the osha to take home to her abuelo. She has sent warm bread from the oven and a dozen freshly baked tamales to Luz's mother. Thank you, Luz said. Then she said goodbye to Reina and hurried home. At home, her mother was baking empanaditas, little pies stuffed with sweet meat. The kitchen smelled delicious. Abuelo sat napping near the stove. The cat lay quietly in his lap. Luz, I'm glad you're home. How was school? Her mother asked. It was fine, Luz said and took off her jacket. We decorated a Christmas tree and we sang and then we exchanged presents. Mrs. Smith said say thank you for the cookies you sent her. How is Abuelo? She looked at her grandfather. He is feeling better today, her mother said. Reina's mother sent home osha. Her mother helped her make tea from the osha. When it was ready, Luz took a cup of tea to her grandfather. She touched his arm. Abuelo, I'm home. Her abuelo opened his eyes. Luz, mijita, I am glad to see you. I fell asleep. I was dreaming. In my dream, I saw the pastores coming to our home. I heard the shepherds singing about the newborn child in Bethlehem. I saw San Miguel, the archangel, leading the pastores to the manger. It was a beautiful dream, Luz said, because in the end of the pastores do get to Bethlehem in time for the birth of Jesus. She kissed her grandfather's cheek. Look, I made you some tea from osha for your cough. She handed him the cup of tea and sat by his side. He smelled warm and strong. When she was by his side, she didn't feel sad anymore. Abuelo sipped the tea. Ah, this is better than the doctor's medicine, he said. With this tea, I will get better. Soon I will feel strong enough to cut the wood for the luminarias. I have to get them ready for the pastores. Luz looked at her mother. Her mother didn't know what to say. They both knew the doctor had said that Abuelo would not be able to do any work until after Christmas. There would be no luminarias for Christmas. That afternoon, Luz went to Reina's house. Reina's father had brought a small green tree from the mountains. Luz helped Reina decorate it. They tied popcorn chains and brightly colored yarn on the tree. Reina's mother put a white wool blanket around the bottom of the tree to look like snow. Finally, Reina's father tied a star to the top of the tree. When they were finished, they stood back and admired their work. "Our first Christmas tree," Reina cried. "When we were little, we didn't have Christmas trees," her mother said. "And no Santa Claus?" Reina asked. "No." "What did you do for Christmas?" Luz asked. "We visited family and friends. We took food to old people. The people here in the pueblo held the deer dance after they went to the church." "And the pastores?" Luz said. "Ever since I can remember, the pastores have come to your grandfather's house," Reina's mother said. "It's the most beautiful part of Christmas. And this year we won't have them." Luz thought sadly. There was no school the following day. Luz swept the house while her mother made tamales and pozole, a stew made of hominy pork and chili. Abuelo pottered around the kitchen, trying to help. There would be no pastores this year, but they would have plenty of food for family and neighbors who came to visit. And they would take food to the old people of the village. It was a tradition for everyone in the village of San Juan to share what they had. In the afternoon, Reina came to visit. She and Luz decorated the sill of the front window with small candles. "We will light them Christmas Eve," Luz's mother said. "From the road, the people will see the candles burning. Maybe the pastores will stop as they pass." "I think not," Abuelo said. "If there are no luminarias, they will not stop." "Maybe we could place a row of candles outside," Reina said. "The candles will be the luminarias." "Good idea," Luz agreed. "How many candles do we have, Mama?" "Oh, I have dozens," her mother said. "I bought 3 boxes so I would have enough to take to church." "Then let's make a row of them," Luz said, like Reina said. "From our door all the way to the street. The candles will be our luminarias." Mother looked at Abuelo. He laughed and shook his head. "Look," he said and pointed out the window. "See those clouds in the mountains? That means it will snow on Christmas Eve. The wind and the snow will put out the candles. That is why I use the piles of pinyon wood as luminarias. Not even snow and wind can put out the bonfires when I start them. If it snows, the pastores can still come and sing and tell their story. The people who come to watch the play can warm themselves by the fires. The tradition goes on because the fires are strong. But candles? No. The snow and wind would put them out." He shook his head sadly and went back to his chair by the stove. "Maybe we could put the candles in cans," Luz said. "Then the wind wouldn't blow them out. Then we couldn't see the light of the candles," her mother said. Luz sighed. She looked at Reina. Reina didn't know what to do either. There would be no luminarias this Christmas Eve, and the pastores would not stop. They would not be invited then to share the feast of tamales, pozole, hot chocolate, and biscochitos. All afternoon, Luz looked at the candles and thought of what to do. "If only I had something to put them in," Luz thought. "Then I could make a line of the candles and light them for the pastores. That would make Abuelo happy." Just before dinner, Luz's mother called her. "Can you run to the store before it gets dark and get some sugar?" "I use it all today baking the biscochitos." Luz put on her coat and mittens, kissed her mother and Abuelo, and ran out into the cold. The wind was beginning to blow. There were wisps of snow in the air. Light glowed from the windows of the village. Everyone was at supper. By morning, the village would be covered by a blanket of snow. It would be a white Christmas. Luz entered the store and bought the sugar for her mother. The storekeeper put the sugar in a brown paper bag. Luz thanked him and started home. She was still thinking of a way to use the candles to make the luminarias. She paused and looked at the windows of the houses. The sun had set. The windows looked so warm and cheery. The candles need a house to protect them from the wind, Luz thought. But what will hold the candle in place and still let it glow? Luz didn't know. When she got home, she handed her mother the bag of sugar. "Thank you, Luz," her mother said. "I had no sugar left for your Abuelo's coffee." She emptied the sugar in her sugar can and handed Luz the bag. "Will you please put this away?" Luz took the bag. She saved all the paper bags in a special place in the pantry. Once a month, she took them back to the store, and the storekeeper gave her a penny for the bags. Then Luz could buy whatever she wanted with her penny. Sometimes she bought candy, sometimes gum. Luz started to fold the bag, but stopped. What if she placed the candle in the bag? The candle would glow. Yes, she thought, it would. Her heart beat faster. She ran to her Abuelo. "Abuelo, we can put the candles in bags. That way they will shine and not go out." Her grandfather looked up from his newspaper. "What?" he asked. "We can put a candle in each bag and make luminarias." She handed her Abuelo the bag and ran to get one of the small candles. "See? Like this." She placed the open bag on the table and put the small candle in the bag. "Now we light it," she said. She felt her heart racing. It would work, she thought. It would work. Her Abuelo took his glasses off. He got up slowly and looked at the candle in the bag. Her mother stopped setting the dishes and looked at the bag. "Luz, I don't think it will work," she said. "The wind will blow the bag away." "If there was sugar in the bag, it wouldn't fall," Luz said. She took a cup full of sugar and put it in the bag. Then she set the candle in the sugar. "But we can't use that much sugar," her mother said. "Wait," Abuelo said. "She has a good idea. We can use sand in the bag, not sugar." He took a match from his pocket and lighted it by scratching it with his thumbnail. Then he lit the candle inside the bag. It sputtered, then glowed brightly. The three stood looking at the warm glow of the candle. The light seemed to dance inside the bag. "It looks like a farol, a lantern," her Abuelo said. "You have made a beautiful farolito." "That's what we will call it, a farolito." "Take it outside to see it glow in the dark." Luz tenderly picked up the bag with the lighted candle while her mother opened the door. She and Abuelo stood at the door while Luz walked out into the night. In the dark, the candle in the brown paper bag glowed brightly. "Oh, it is beautiful," Luz's mother said. "Imagine 100 of them," Abuelo said, "all along the path to the road on top of the adobe wall, shining to light the way for the pastores. And the children can make them," the mother said. "It will truly be a child's Christmas." Luz ran back to her mother and Abuelo. The three stood huddled at the door, looking at the farolito that glowed brightly in the dark night. "I have dozens of bags," Luz said. "And I have dozens of candles," her mother said. "And I feel strong enough to help you put sand in the bags and help you light them," Abuelo said. They laughed and hugged each other. "Tomorrow I will tell Reina," Luz said. "She can help." That night before she went to bed, Luz looked out the window. The little farolito she had made was still burning brightly. Tomorrow night was Christmas Eve. There would be 100 farolitos lighting the way. Luz prayed her father would be home in time to share the joy. The following morning, Luz jumped out of bed before the sun rose. She hurried to help her Abuelo light the wood stove to warm the house. "You look happy, little one," her Abuelo said. "I am happy," Luz answered. "I can hardly wait to tell Reina the secret. And you, Abuelo, how do you feel?" Her grandfather smiled. "I feel much stronger. I think it was the Osha tea you fixed for me. I'm ready to help fill the bags with sand." Luz hugged him. Then she went to help her mother fix breakfast. They ate hot atole, eggs and tortillas, and warm empanaditas. After breakfast, Luz put her coat and mittens and ran to Reina's house. Full of excitement, she told Reina the secret of the farolitos. Then they hurried to Luz's house to make them. Abuelo went to the arroyo and got the sand. Luz and Reina opened all the bags and put sand in the bottom. Then, in the base of sand, they placed a candle. When they finished, they put the little bags all in a line from the door to the street. They even put bags along the top of Abuelo's adobe wall. Some neighbors passed by while they were working. They couldn't understand what the bags were for. They laughed. "What are you going to catch in the bags? Falling stars?" they asked. The neighborhood kids gathered around and laughed at Luz and Reina and Abuelo. "Yes," Luz answered, "we are going to catch falling stars. Wait and see." "Come tonight," Abuelo told his neighbors. "Oh, we will," the people laughed. "We want to see the falling stars." Late in the afternoon, when they were finished setting up the farolitos, they went inside to drink hot chocolate. Now all they had to do was wait till it get dark to light the candles. Around them, the people of the village of San Juan were busy preparing for Christmas. People went from house to house to visit and take food to the elders. The church was scrubbed clean and the candles were lit. They would celebrate with a mass at midnight. The pastores put on their costumes and prepared to perform their play. But there was a sadness in the air because everyone knew that Abuelo was too sick to light the bonfires. The shepherds would sing about the newborn child in Bethlehem as the procession hurried to the church, but they would not stop at any house unless there were luminarias to guide them. After Luz and Reina drank their chocolate, they waited at the window. They watched the sun set and the first wisp of snow begin to fall. Soon it was dark and the soft snow was falling like white feathers. "It's time to light the farolitos," Luz shouted. "It's time," Reina repeated. They looked at Abuelo. "Yes, it's time." He smiled. Wrapped in their warmest coats, they went out to light the farolitos. Abuelo held a matchbox. Luz and Reina carefully went from bag to bag and lit the candles. 100 farolitos shone brightly in the night. The children of the village came to see the beautiful sight. No one had ever seen farolitos like this before. "Oh, how beautiful," the children said. Then the pastores came down the street. They paused to look at the farolitos shining brightly in the dark. "This is the place for our play," Kila, the shepherd girl, said. All the pastores agreed. The farolitos were the stars guiding them to Bethlehem. The entire village gathered round and watched with delight the play of the pastores. Luz and Reina stood side by side, beaming with happiness. The dancing light of the farolitos shone in their eyes. Abuelo stood by them, happy as the children. When the play of the pastores ended, all the players and neighbors were invited into the house to eat. Abuelo served the pozole and hot chili. Mother served the empanaditas and hot coffee. "I feel well," Abuelo said to his neighbors. "We told you we could catch falling stars," he winked. Luz smiled. All the village was talking about the farolitos. "Next year, every house will have farolitos," Abuelo said. Everyone was happy. From time to time, they went to the window to look outside. The farolitos were glowing brightly in the dark. Around them, the snow fell softly, creating a scene of peace and beauty. When the people began to sing the songs of Christmas, Luz put on her coat and went outside alone. She was happy that her abuelo was better and that the pastores had come to their house. But she was also sad because her father had not been able to come home for Christmas. She walked up the path to the street. Around her, the farolitos glowed lightly. The snow fell softly. What a beautiful Christmas, Luz thought. If only Father was here to share with us. She paused as she saw a dark figure coming down the street. The figure came closer. "Luz!" the figure called. It was her father, and he carried a Christmas tree. Papa! Luz called and ran to greet him. He swept her up in his arms. I'm so happy you're home, she cried and hugged him. It was a long trip, he said, and I stopped to cut a Christmas tree for you. But what's this? He looked at the farolitos. We made them today because Abuelo couldn't make the luminarias. We call them farolitos. They're beautiful, her father said. I could see them from far away. A more beautiful sight I have never seen. Then together they went into the house. Mother cried because she was happy. Father told how he came in the bus and how he saw the farolitos when he got to the village. Everyone was happy that he had returned in time for Christmas. Abuelo set up the Christmas tree and Luz and Reina decorated it with bright yarn and popcorn strings. Father had brought a star, which they put at the top. Mother put her nacimiento at the bottom of the tree. The nacimiento was the small figures of Jesus in his cradle, Mary and Joseph, and the shepherds and their animals. Then it was time for the procession to continue on the church. Everybody went out, shouting, Feliz Navidad! Merry Christmas! That night, when Luz and her family returned from church, the farolitos were still glowing brightly. In the snow they shone like guiding lights, welcoming them home. Farolitos de luz, her abuelo said, a tradition that will last for every Christmas as long as there is love in our hearts.